How the heck are you, everybody? Welcome to my second big video of the day on the limited guaranteed heroes available in Watcher of Realms. At the time of filming this, we have got the limited selector coming in less than 24 hours. So I did a video earlier today where I broke down every single limited hero in this game and ranked them from 10 to 1, from worst to best. Definitely watch that video before you watch this one if you want to be fully informed. In this video, I will specifically focus on the best awakenings for these units, ranking every single awakening beginning with getting the base copy of the most important heroes, and then when it's most important to pull for a new awakening as opposed to pulling for a new hero. I spent a lot of time on this one, so if you like it, be sure to subscribe to the channel and be sure to check out that other video. This video is really for people that are wondering how they should pull and use their Soulstones, and also for people that really want to min-max each one of these characters and hit the key awakenings in the right order. If you're a collector, if you want to just catch them all, and your goal with this limited selector banner is to pick the best limited unit you do not own, just use my every limited hero ranked list and pick the unit with the highest ranking that you do not own. This list is very much geared towards the best heroes from the other lists, and actually only the top 5 heroes are going to make my top 12 awakenings, because I feel like if you're min-maxing, getting these awakenings, if you don't care about owning every hero, is more important than getting your first copy of some of the lesser characters. Like I said, on that list, we went from worst to best.
Fastidious.
Fastidious.
For this one, there's no other way to do it than begin with our number 1 awakening. And like I said, we start with base copies. This is going to be getting your copy of Daochan. So if you're someone in this game who does not own a single limited hero, if you're a new player, you just never pulled on the limited banner, there is no bigger boost to your account than pulling Daochan. Daochan is the best non-lord in the game, in my opinion. It is her and Eluin, but overall, I think Daochan is the most flexible, the most universal, the greatest support in this game. She gives a ton of damage reduction, a little healing, and some very, very good survivability and support in her base mode, but when she goes to the Sorrow mode, this black mode over here, she is the best buffer in the game. She's giving penetration to your top 2 units with the highest attack that aren't healers. She's giving constant, permanent uptime on inspiration, lending a portion of her attack to all the allies in range. It is completely and utterly busted. I don't care about other DPS units that we're going to discuss on this list. To have a good DPS, you need good support. You can find other DPS. You cannot find other support to the level of Daochan. She is completely and utterly God tier. The first priority, the top awakening, is going to be getting her a 0. For number 2, this is another base awakening, and this is going to be Kiri. It was very hard for me to decide between ranking 2 and 3, so let's actually reveal 3 right now. This is going to be our third and final base awakening unit before we start getting into additional awakenings on some of these same units, and this is going to be Sun Wukong. Now, why was it so hard to decide between Kiri A0 or Sun Wukong A0? In a vacuum, who is better at A0? It is by a mile, Sun Wukong. However, I think getting that initial copy of Kiri so you can already invest 3 Soulstones in him or start working towards that is more important than getting the initial copy of Sun Wukong. In my opinion, where the game stands right now at the time of filming this on July 30th, 2025, during the 2nd anniversary, Kiri A3 is just that important. And that's where people should be focusing all their efforts. We're going to talk about that specific awakening in a moment. However, getting the base copy is the only way you'll be able to make strides towards and be able to achieve that higher level Kiri. So I think the top priority is just picking up that base copy. Immediately after, though, the third awakening ranked on our list is getting the base copy of Sun Wukong. Wukong is the best single target DPS out of the box in this game. When it comes to already just being a superstar unit and not needing awakenings, Wukong is tremendous. As you will see from the rest of this list, his A3 and his A5 are tremendous, and they will be ranked, but even at A0, he is just such a monster. I mean, he's better than A0 Arrogance, he's better than A0 Twyla, and someone like Kiri, he's like 3 times better than in terms of DPS. He also brings a ton of utility out of the box with his summons and with his stuns. He is absolutely tremendous. I think at this point, for certain people, Wukong is getting underrated because Kiri is that good. You are really losing the forest for the trees. This guy is an absolute monster. Let's keep working our way down the list. And again, if you do want to see a deep dive breakdown on not just the 5 limiteds we're discussing in this video, but all 10 in the game, definitely check out my earlier video from today. That one goes deep. That one goes hard. Let's go to number 4 now in our rankings, or essentially our priority list, and we will get our first awakening of a hero we have already mentioned. This is going to be A1 Daochan. A1 Daochan is the best awakening in the game, in my opinion. It will cost you only 1 unpolished soulstone or just pulling 1 extra dupe, and it completely transforms who this character is. Daochan at A1 has her range filled out, and that is the difference in so much content. The extra 4 tiles of range she gets at A1, filling out the corners of this diamond she has here, it is the biggest difference you're going to see on any character on this list. Does it make her stronger? No, but it gets 4 more units potentially into her range. It enables so many new positioning strategies. It unlocks so many fresh deployments. It changes your ability to beat so much content. She becomes a superstar in all the bosses, in all the arena stages, and she obviously is just god tier for progression. Why am I pulling up Aylin? Well, if we look at Aylin at max promotion, this is her range, and this becomes Daochan's permanent range for all her effects, whether in white mode or black mode, once you get her A1. And there truly is no better use of extra summons to hunt for a dupe, or no better use of an unpolished soulstone in this game than getting Daochan over here to A1. So that is why she's not just the first unit on this list for getting the base copy, she's the first unit on this list for hunting for a specific awakening. If we go back to our list and we show number 5, this is going to be getting Anora A0. I almost put this at number 6. You'll understand once we see number 6. You can also guess what it's going to be. But Anora is such a powerful and such a unique AoE DPS in this game, such a tremendous mage. I think you need to prioritize getting the base copy of her over awakenings for others. I'm talking specifically now when you're pulling for units. Obviously, you can eventually get awakenings. Some will do it sooner than most, and some will take longer than most, but you eventually can do it with Soulstones. I think it is so important at this point, once you've gotten the big 3 and your A1 Daochan, to focus on getting that base copy of Anora. For starters, at the time of filming this, she had a rate up very recently, about 2 months ago, so I do not anticipate she'll be on rerun anytime soon. So likely, if you're watching this now, if you don't pick her up with this limited selector, you will have to wait until the next one. The earliest I think that could be would be Christmas. Very likely it won't happen until next anniversary. Who's to say? All we know from the devs is they said these limited selector banners will be very rare. They said that in a dev Q&A. But with Anora, she is just tremendous. Like I said, I break her down in very big detail in my other video. Essentially, she hits like a truck. You do not need to buff her, which actually is kind of a benefit because you don't have to make her rely on any other units. It also makes her placements a lot more flexible when you're using different deployment strategies. She is really, really, really good. And then once you get Ymmerit, her bond skill is crazy. Her summon Labor becomes Labor Ice, who is just strictly better in every way. And she also gives a very good bond skill to Ymmerit. She has her bond with Ymmerit, and Ymmerit is just such a star unit in this game at this point. Good in PvP, phenomenal in PvE at this point. For the new harder stages of the gear raids especially, I think she is a must pick up. And I think before you start looking at your Sun Wukong and your Kiri for more awakenings, make sure you at least own a base copy of Anora. However, before we talk about awakenings for Sun Wukong and Kiri and hunting for them with your summons, not just using your soul stones on them, we do have one more base copy on this list, and that will be picking up Mortyn at A0. At the time of filming this, he will not be included in the limited selector because he was just on rate up literally 2 weeks ago at the time we're filming this, so I will have him here grayed out. But that being said, Mortyn is tremendous. I think he is incredibly strong in the content we have, and many people are underrating him. But that still being said, I don't think there's anyone positioned to age more gracefully with future content than Mortyn. I think they will lean further and further into tactician-based strategies, and Mortyn is the best single-target tactician in the game right now, and also the best support tactician. The rage he gives in his Prince of Darkness state when he is not facing a target or he does not have targets in range is really, really, really tremendous. If we pull it up here, you can see right next to my head, it is 1.6% rage per second to all allies within 2 tiles, and this is nonstop. This is continuous for the entire time he's in the Prince of Darkness state, and he does not have someone in his attack range. On top of that, he can deal really nice DPS, especially in certain PvP stages where he jumps around. That initial burst from his ultimate, where he's going to deal, it says 400%, but it skills up to 600% fully defense penetrating damage, is wild. And then on top of that, in boss content, he actually deals a lot of really good damage. And then when you don't need him to deal damage, such as the physical immunity, magic damage only state in Abyss, point him away, and he becomes an amazing support for every other unit that's within his 2-tile range. It is so, so good. I want to take one moment because I did a whole breakdown on Mortyn, a whole guide, and a lot of people don't understand what defense penetration meant, even though I do think I explained it in the video. This is essentially damage that is ignoring all defense. For that reason, people are calling it true damage, which is not true. This is better than true damage. This is damage that can crit. True damage is only pure damage based off of a certain stat, so enemy defense or your ally's attack. This is not pure damage, but strong damage based off of his attack that can then crit and then ignores all of the defense. This is the best kind of damage in the game. This is why an ulting Silas is so powerful, right? Because he's critting while shredding all defense and all magic resistance. So very, very, very strong. Mortyn deals a ton of damage, brings a ton of support, and I just think at the time of filming this in July 2025, especially since you can't pick him up now, I thought it was important that I let it be known how highly I regard him, because I think he's going to age phenomenally in future content, and already he's really, really good at some of the hardest things in the game. Abyss 1, he's on many 60k plus teams now. I actually saw him on a 90k team on Forerunner the other day, which is mind-blowing. Shout out to John Wayne. And then finally, he's also phenomenal in Malric content, specifically the sewer stage we have right now. Just amazing at that. Mortyn is phenomenal. Let's go into more awakenings for heroes we have already discussed, and actually, these are the 5 heroes we're discussing, period, in this video. Let's show it off now. This is going to be Kiri's A3. So Kiri's A3 is the most powerful DPS awakening in this game, and it is not close. If it was his A1, I might have it ranked even above Daochan's A1. Even though Daochan is more formative for more content in this game, the jump in DPS he gets going from A0 to A3 is absolutely everything. It's nuts. So why is it nuts? In my opinion, don't worry, at this point they'll never change it, but I do not think they wrote this and coded this correctly, because it is utterly broken, the effect he earns. To begin with, at A0, his damage is fine. It's like a 5 or 6 out of 10. For a legendary of his quality, he's like a usable DPS, but nothing close to special. He's worse than so many of the Nightmare fighters in this game, and obviously so much worse than an A0 Wukong. However, a big part of Kiri's kit is doing counters. So he's got 2 kind of counters, they call them strikes. There's the sweeping strike and the ember strike. The ember strike happens when he's ulting and he's in his parried state and he is hit within 3 seconds. This is the much stronger version. The sweeping strike is from everything else. The auto triggers from his talent, and then of course when he's ulting and he is not hit within 3 seconds. All those strikes come with a second kind of counter, or maybe think of those strikes as a parry, and then after the parry, he gets something that's called a counter, and that is going to be this over here, a swallow counter. When he does either of his strikes, the sweeping strike and the ember strike, he has a 15% chance that scales up to a 25% chance, so a 1 in 4 chance, to immediately launch an identical strike in the opposite direction. So he's in his parry mode, he does one of the 2 strikes, he strikes forward, and then on his way back, he'll strike back and deal a second instance of damage equal to the first strike's damage. This strike cannot trigger this effect again, so he can't continuously just keep striking back and forth, but essentially this one-off is a second equal instance of damage back from the way which he came, right? Very, very, very strong. However, at A3, it blows up into everything because triggering these swallow counters gives him permanent and unbelievably strong damage boosts. So let's read through it. With this A3, let me move myself out of the way here. Within 10 seconds after he triggers the first strike, the weaker one, sweeping strike, each direct damage will deal an additional instance of 35% of that damage. So within 10 seconds after he does a sweeping strike now, all additional instances of damage will come with 35% of each one of those instances. So if all future instances for the next 10 seconds deal 10 damage, he's now dealing an additional 3.5 damage, 35% damage of that 10 for the remaining 10 seconds. Moreover, he gets a better boost with his Ember Strike. So within 10 seconds after activating this one, each direct damage will come with 2 additional instances of damage for those 10 seconds, and each one of those instances is equal to 25% of the direct damage. So for the next 10 seconds after he does an Ember Strike, All of his damage, if again he was doing 10 damage per hit, is going to come with 2 additional hits of 2.5 or 5 more damage, right? So 15 total. It is a 50% boost in all his damage. This is like post-calculation, end of the equation damage for the next 10 seconds. Really good, right? You understand why it's strong. Well, if that's all you thought it was, you wouldn't be understanding, because it takes almost nothing once he does those swallow counters to make those boosts permanent for the remainder of whatever battle he's in. And once he's made each one of those boosts permanent, they are permanent together and they stack. So when either of these strikes triggers a swallow counter, which remember at base with skill ups is a 25% chance to happen, so it should happen 1 in 4 times. It only needs to happen once. He hits them again on the way back. The corresponding effects become permanent. So for the remainder of the battle, once you have triggered 1 swallow counter from his sweeping strike and 1 swallow counter from his ember strike, all his direct damage will come with an additional 85% damage. This is a post-calculation boost of 1.85x. He's just dealing 85% more damage once you've triggered these 2 easy-to-trigger things twice. For a long piece of content, a long battle, a boss battle, he just has 85% more damage. It is night and day. He goes from being a decent DPS to definitively the best boss DPS in the game, the best single-target DPS in the game. And on top of that, guys, remember, unlike Wukong, who does have a lot of clones, and sometimes it feels a little bit like AoE damage, that's all single-target. With Kiri, when he's doing those strikes, he's doing huge AoE, and the whole time, once you have him A3, he is getting these crazy permanent damage boosts. It is completely and utterly insane. I won't spend this long on every awakening, but Kagiri's A3 is freaking everything. He becomes completely and utterly god tier. Wukong has a really nice jump going from A0 to A3, and Wukong actually has a superior jump going from A3 to A5 than Kiri has going from A3 to A5. But the jump Kiri gets going from A0 to A3 dwarfs anything else. Kiri just becomes the best boss DPS in the game while still being really viable for a lot of PvP and PvE content because he's doing the AoEs, he's doing the counters all the time. He's so flexible, he's so versatile. It is insanity. If we go to number 8, speaking of Wukong's A3, that's where this is going to slot in. Sun Wukong A3 is really good. Wukong becomes a lot more reliable. He becomes a lot more easy to use. He becomes a much better stunner, and he deals more damage. So let's go to that A3 right now. So when Wukong is fighting enemies, he has chances to deal stuns. So he can put out a lot of good stuns, and if the enemies he's trying to stun are stun immune, he does extra instances of damage. His Sage clones cannot do this, but that does change at A3. Starting at A3, his Sage clones, all the monkey clones he creates, they now also have a 25% chance to stun, and they also will do bursty additional damage if the target is stun immune. Finally, Wukong can really shred through enemies when he has 5 stacks of Sunder because it allows him to ignore a lot of defense. You can see that over here, this second part. The ultimate will consume full stacks of Sunder and enables him to ignore 60% of defense for 10 seconds. This scales up to 15 seconds. But for this to happen and for him to get the best burst from his ultimate and the best continued damage post-ultimate, he needs 5 stacks of Sunder. And because Wukong ults so frequently, it is actually hard for him to build 5 stacks of Sunder quickly and reliably. You can see it only happens when he triggers Golden Cudgel Strike. That's this passive over here, and that only happens 25% of the time from his basic attacks. However, at A3, now his clones can also earn him Sunder stacks. So when they stun or fail to stun and do the extra damage, they're going to give him a stack of Sunder. So very frequently and reliably now, without having to count it and focus on it, Wukong will have 5 stacks of Sunder, get the full benefit of his final passive when he ults, and the A3 is very huge in that respect. So it is a really nice thing for extra crowd control and a lot more consistent and reliable damage. Let's go to number 9 on our list now, getting towards the end. This is going to be Kagiri's A5. I will already unveil number 10. This will be Sun Wukong's A5, and this was a very tricky rating for me. Sun Wukong's A5 adds more to his kit than Kagiri's A5 adds to his. That being said, I felt like I had to rate Kiri above Wukong even for that A5, even though the damage boost is less significant because Kiri is the better unit who more people at this level should be heavily investing in. That being said, there was an original version of this list where I wrote it like this, and you can kind of think of this as 9A and 9B. It's all about your approach. If you're using Kiri and Sun Wukong in a piece of boss content, for example, and you want to know with 2 Soulstones or 2 Dupes summoned, which unit going from A3 to A5 will lead to more total damage against this boss, the answer would be Sun Wukong. But because I think Kiri is more flexible, versatile, and more important for content outside of that, and for content where you are using him by himself and not just alongside his partner, Sun Wukong, I chose to rank Kiri at 9 and Wukong at 10. But you kind of can't go wrong with either. So let's kick things off with Kiri, then we'll circle back to Sun Wukong. So thankfully for me, because I'm running out of breath here, Kagiri's A5 is pretty simple. Previously, the chance to trigger the swallow counter, get the additional damage on your way back with Kagiri's strikes, that was a 25% chance at max skill ups. Now at A5, it is guaranteed to trigger all the time. There is one singular exception from that. The sweeping strikes he launches against the farthest enemy every 40 seconds that do become more frequent as he deals more basic attacks. Those do not have the guaranteed trigger, but anytime he does a sweeping strike triggered by him entering the parry state when you ult with him, or the Ember Strikes, obviously, which can only be triggered by you ulting and him entering the parried state that way. Anytime those two happen, he is guaranteed to have a swallow counter. For most content, you're going to get good at timing it out, so he always counters within 3 seconds. He always does the Ember Strikes, so you're dealing with double damage from his best move every single time. The other reason this A5 is very strong is you're going to get this guaranteed to be locked in a lot faster, right? To get the permanent effects, you need to have a swallow counter trigger on the sweeping strike and a swallow counter trigger on the Ember Strike. It's now guaranteed every time he Ember Strikes, he's going to get a trigger. And then the sweeping strike, if you do it with the ult, is guaranteed to trigger. Otherwise, just get it from the talent. He does those all the time, so you'll be cooking. You'll get the benefit from the A3 a lot faster. It'll be a lot more consistent in your runs. And then obviously a lot more DPS from his Ember Strike. That is going to be Kagiri's A5. Sun Wukong's A5 is definitely nuttier. It's just Kiri is better, in my opinion. So let's go to Sun Wukong now. So there are actually 3 different changes, 3 improvements that come with Sun Wukong's A5. The first one is the simplest, and it is the best. He is going to increase the instances of damage from his ultimate by 18. It starts at 18 instances of damage. Now it's going to be 36. So instead of dealing 1800% burst damage quickly when he ults, it is now 3600%. That is obviously crazy. More often, the self-buff he gives himself from his talent, Undaunted Might, becomes so much better and so much more significant. So at base, or just not A5, he gets 1 stack of Undaunted Might every 30 seconds up to 5 stacks. That is going to be a 5% damage boost. 1 stack is 1% increased damage to elites and bosses. It can only stack up to 5 times. But for a really long battle, especially APOC 2, those can be incredibly long battles, you can now stack it a lot more times, 25 more times to be exact. So once you're deep in that battle, instead of getting a 5% boost against the boss, against Semra, you are getting a 35% boost. The 25 extra stacks brings you from 5 to 30. That's a 30% boost. And then finally, this is very good. After using his ultimate, the chance to trigger Golden Cudgel's Strike, that is how you're stacking Sunder, that's how you're getting stuns, or that is how you are getting additional instances of damage when you try to stun immune targets. The chance is now increased by 35% for 12 seconds. So remember, with skill ups, this is a 25% chance. Now in the 12 seconds post ultimate, you are up to a 60% chance. So many more stuns, a lot more damage. Sunder becomes guaranteed to be stacked up to 5 by the next ult, essentially. This is very strong. It is very good in general, but particularly it is good for stunning Semra, and it is exceptionally good in PvP, namely GVG, when you choose to use Wukong on defense. Though he's slightly fallen out right now, that could easily come back. Very, very, very nice. Very, very, very good A5 for Sun Wukong. For the last 2, we can go a bit faster, especially with number 11. This is going to be the A1 for Mortyn. So again, I will gray him out so people that are watching at the time this video comes out know that he is not an option to pull for with this limited selector banner. But Mortyn's A1 is just really, really nice. So Mortyn has a passive called Soul Sunder. I'll pull that up now. During his ultimate, Soul Strike has a 25% chance to be enhanced, ignoring 60% of the target's defense, that is obviously amazing, and restoring 50 rage for the hero upon each cast. What is Soul Strike? Well, during his ultimate, when he's in the Prince of Darkness state and he has a target to hit, all his basic attacks become Soul Strike. So basically, the damage he's dealing during his ultimate now has an increased chance to be an enhanced version of what it normally would be, the normal Soul Strike. So these are very nice effects. Ignoring defense is huge in a lot of content, and then restoring rage for himself is really good because he can ult cycle very quickly. This is nice in content where you want to move him around. This is nice in content where you want him spamming ults for damage, and this is nice for content where you want him doing his DPS mode and then quickly switching to a support mode, pointing him away and getting rage for a bunch of your teammates. Now with his A1 during the ultimate, which by the way lasts for the duration of his Prince of Darkness state, which has a base duration of 20 seconds, but when you use Mortyn properly, it will last 40 seconds, as long as you have his 5 stacks of Dark Infusion. Watch my Mortyn guide if you want more info on that. But during that ultimate, for basically 40 seconds, because you're going to use him properly, the trigger chance is increased by 20%. So instead of having the enhanced soul strikes during the ultimate 25% of the time, they are now 45% of the time. It leads to a lot more damage, and it certainly allows him to cycle his ult a lot quicker. This is a very, very good move, especially against bosses. I really, really like that awakening. Now, finally, the last specific awakening on the list is going to be number 12. Who's it going to be? None other than my girl, Daochan. We started with her at A0. We had her pretty quickly at A1. And then finally, our specific 12th awakening that we are rating is going to be Daochan's A3. This thing is amazing. You just don't need it right now for any content. Unless you are super, super high level in Arena, not even PvP, specifically Arena, you do not need Daochan at A3. It does help, but it is a pretty major investment when you already got the key thing in her kit at her A1. Her A3 buffs the permanent effects given by her passive over here, Thorned Rose. So these are constant uptime effects depending on what mode she is in. So if she's in the Serenade of Hope mode, the white mode, she's applying full physical damage and magic damage reductions to all allies in range. Those reductions are 20%. When you get her A3, the strength of those reductions is increased to 25%. You can see it rises 5%. Moreover, from Thorned Rose, the permanent boost when she's in the black mode, the Song of Sorrow mode, is going to be this penetration increase to the 2 allies in her range that are not healers and have the highest attack. Typically your 2 best DPS or your 2 best DPS fighters, because those usually have the highest attack. So the units will ignore 20% of all targets' defense and magic res. When you get this at A3, you add a whole other target, so 1 additional unit is now going to be affected by that penetration boost. That is very, very good. Like I said, these are both positive effects, but for almost all content in the game, they are not game-changing effects. That is why I put it the lowest on the list. It is significant. If you can naturally pull it, or if you just have a wealth of unpolished Soulstones, it is a great investment. But for most normal players, I mean the vast, vast majority of normal players, 99.9% of players, this is not a priority until you've accomplished everything else above it. So that is going to be my list. There is one final thing that is still blacked out. What could it be? It's pretty simple. After these 12 awakenings, at that point, just go for the best unowned limited available. So if you're trying to min-max and you're summoning on the limited selector banner and somehow you already have A3 Daochan, A3 Kiri, A3 Sung Wukong, a copy of Anora, and an A1 Mortyn, then just go down the list and pick the best available. If you already have every unit and all of those awakenings, let me know in the comments. That is a very specific case. I will give you bespoke individual advice. Guys, thank you so much for watching. I've been filming for over 3 hours today talking about limited heroes, so let me know your thoughts in the comments. If you do appreciate it, please subscribe to the channel. A huge thank you to R-Type for editing not just this video, but the other video. Be sure to watch that as well. Thank you. I've been Fastidious. Share with your mother, and I'll see you real soon. Bye.
Fastidious.